Welcome to PTI BetterGradesFast.com multimedia tutorials. This language arts session will be on affirmation and negation. First, we will look at affirmation. Affirmation is simply the term given to any sentence that has no negative pronouns in it. In other words, it's a positive sentence or a positive response to a question. For example, the sentence, "I have 3 pens," is an affirmative sentence. It's like saying, yes, I really do have 3 pens. All affirmative sentences have no negative pronouns. Negative sentences, on the other hand, or negation, have negative pronouns. This will be considered the opposite of affirmation. Therefore, if you have sentences with words like no, not, never, nothing, these will all be considered negative sentences because they contain these negative pronouns. Let me show you some examples. Someone is in my room. This sentence will be considered affirmative because it is telling you that someone is in a room without using any negative words. Therefore, it will show affirmation. If I were to change this sentence to a negative sentence to make it show negation, I would have to include negative pronouns. Let me show you how this is done. We can do this 2 ways. One option is changing the word someone to no one. Here we have the negative sentence no one, so we know this is a negative form of the sentence before, which shows negation. Another option is to include the negative pronoun not. So you may also say, someone is not in my room. Both of these sentences are accurate negative versions of the first affirmative sentence because they both contain negative pronouns. If these words were not here, then these sentences would still be affirmative. Remember, the difference between affirmative and negative is that an affirmative sentence has no negative pronouns, but a negative sentence does. There are commonly used affirmative words and common negative opposites for them. This means that when you see specific affirmative words, you should immediately know the negative form if it is that you have to change it to a negative sentence. Here we see one example. Someone usually changes to no one. Let me show you some more. These are just a few of the commonly used affirmative words and their negative forms. For somebody, we have nobody. Also, you can have anybody working with nobody. Anyone goes with no one. Someone can also go with no one. Always has never as its negative pronoun. And yes has no. As you can see, these are all opposites of words. So, for example, if you have a sentence that says, she always listens to the radio, and you need to put it in the negative form, you will replace the word always with never, therefore making a sentence that says, she never listens to the radio. You cannot interchange negative words. This will make your sentence incorrect. For example, with that same sentence, she always listens to the radio, you cannot say, nobody listens to the radio, because nobody does not go with always. There are specific negative words for specific affirmative words. So you need to learn these to be able to know which corresponds with which. If you need to change a negative sentence to affirmative, it just works the other way around. For example, if you need to change a sentence that says, no one can drive that car, and you need to make it affirmative, you change no one to anyone. Another option can also be someone. So instead of no one can drive that car, you will end up with anyone can drive that car or someone can drive that car. Both will be considered correct. Remember, with negation, the word not does not have an affirmative equivalent. This means that there is no affirmative side for the word not. For example, if I say, I do not have a lot of money, if I want to make that affirmative, I do not have to replace the word not, I just have to leave it out. Instead of saying, I do not have a lot of money, I will just have to say, I have a lot of money. That is why we say that not has no affirmative equivalent. Remember these words when you need to change a sentence from affirmation to negation or the other way around, from negative to affirmative. Also remember that certain affirmative words have to go with certain negative words, so you need to learn these. Finally, keep in mind that not is a negative word that has no affirmative equivalent. So if you need to make a sentence containing the word not into the affirmative form, you simply need to leave it out. Try taking sentences that you write in an affirmative way and make them negative. Also, if you write negative sentences, practice by making them affirmative. This will help you to remember the difference between affirmation and negation. Thank you for choosing PTI BetterGradesFast.com.